Shadowy figures glare at you from around dark corners and roam the abandoned hallways, footsteps echoing and the sound of prisoners' chains dropping to the floor. This is a place of vengeful spirits. If you're sensitive to psychic vibes, it might be best to run and hide, never to enter this hostile environment, as many inmates at this prison went insane, resulting in one prisoner setting himself on fire in a desperate attempt to escape. Today we will dissect Ohio State Reformatory, said to be one of the most haunted prisons in the world. We will discuss the many hotspots for paranormal activity around this terrifying facility, where ghosts still linger, wanting their stories to be told. Like many places, time is a cruel mistress who loves nothing more than to chip away at the aging paint, spatter furnishings with dust, insects, and decay. Our first hotspot in this striking limestone building is the infirmary, where people have died from disease, sickness, and malnutrition, to name a few. If you were deemed too weak to survive on your own due to beatings from fellow inmates, you'd be held here for your own protection. But in truth, that was a load of crap, as many would have preferred taking their chances with the prisoners. It seems the infirmary was often overlooked by staff. So many residents found themselves lacking medical attention, but also going without food for days at a time. Often inmates would starve to death due to the stronger prisoners taking their food in a bid to survive the difficult times. Visitors to the infirmary have experienced unknown gusts of wind and seen clusters of orbs in photographs. The sounds of disembodied moans can be heard, as if ghosts are reliving their last anguished moments. EMF detectors are said to be very active in this area too. Now, just outside the prison grounds, over 200 of the unclaimed inmates were laid to rest, or it was hoped they would rest anyway. In this area, you will struggle to take any photographs, as most cameras will simply stop working. Also, metal grave markers will move around on their own by mischievous, unseen hands, as if graveyards are not creepy enough. And watching over all the activity is the prison guard tower. But today, it's not looking out for prisoners trying to escape or get up to no good. No. Instead, it is a place to hear disembodied voices. But even that is nothing compared to an entity so powerful it has violently thrown grown men up and down the steep steps. As we venture further inside this imposing building, you will find the library, where once upon a time it might have well been a place of reflection. Now it is said to be haunted by a former prison nurse who was murdered by inmates. But it seems she doesn't hold a grudge, as prisoners had claimed that often at night a lady would visit them and gently tuck their blankets around them. This same prison nurse is believed to be the ghostly visitor. Now, when you are struggling with feelings of isolation and regret, you may look to religion and visit the prison chapel. You will discover that this is not the comforting place you were hoping for. You see, long ago it was the unofficial place for executions. People feel lots of negative energy here, with sightings of orbs and phantom voices heard. Visitors have also said that ghosts linger near the door to the chapel and can be seen from the corner of your eye. But be quick, as when you turn to face them, they simply vanish. It has been reported more recently that as you try to leave this area, unseen hands will grab at you, trying to make you stop. Do you feel you'd be comfortable walking in this area? I'm not sure how I'd feel, but maybe the sense of unease would be enough to set the hairs on the nape of your neck on edge. In 1950, Helen Glattke, who was the wife of one of the prison wardens, was fatally shot in her right lung after a gun accidentally fell to the floor while she was rummaging in a wardrobe in her quarters. This was situated in the East Administration Building. People have reported smelling her rose-scented perfume when she's close by, as well as cold spots. In death, she is eternally with her late husband, who died at his desk from a heart attack. They've been heard in heated conversation many times, too faint to hear exactly what is being said, but creepy enough for those who've heard it. The warden still goes about his duties, with his heavy footsteps heard walking through the living quarters, the admin wing, and various other areas of the prison. As you venture up to the third floor of the building, you will feel that you're not alone, with the sound of voices whispering to you and footsteps approaching when no one can be seen. It certainly tests the nerves of even the most brave of us. The acts of violence feelings of depression, fear and loneliness will have been something felt on a daily basis in the east and west cell blocks. One such prisoner became so desperate he managed to get hold of some kerosene, doused himself in it, and then lit a match. Reports say that by the time the guards got to him, he was so burnt that skin was falling off him in chunks. Today he makes himself known to those visiting his cell by seeing his ghostly shadow, and many have heard cell doors clanging shut in the darkness, while breath can be felt on your face as an invisible entity gets really close to you. Visitors have been hit, shoved, and punched, with some even being thrown down steps. Psychic people struggle in this area due to an overwhelming feeling of hatred that emanates from the cell blocks. People visiting the West Wing shower have witnessed mists and a sense of being choked. That must be terrifying to experience, especially as the atmosphere would be challenging to begin with. Talking about angry spirits though, there is one place in the prison called the chair room, simply because that it is all that's inside this area. But don't let the decor fool you, as it is known that it's not an invite to sit and relax. This chair can be heard scraping on the floor as it's dragged by invisible hands. One paranormal hunter was rewarded with deep scratches after thinking they could sit in the chair. If you move it to the centre of the room, this entity gets mad and will push it back to the same creepy corner that it's been in for years. But worse is yet to come as we venture into the bowels of the prison. You see, in the admin basement, there are two ghosts that are still very active. One is said to be a 14-year-old boy who was brutally beaten to death. Many have seen his shadowy form moving along the wall or seeing him from out the corner of their eye. His energy, though, feels light, which is a far cry from how the other entity feels. Many believe that the other spirit is the guard who killed the young boy, tormenting him even in death. His energy is said to feel sinister, making you feel anxious and uneasy. But the worst place in the prison that has witnessed murders, torture by guards and suicide is located in the prison basement. If you were wanting to get away with murder, you wouldn't do it in the main cell block area as too many eyes and witnesses. You would look for a lonelier, more isolated place. Here you will find solitary confinement, otherwise known as the hole. This area was used for punishment of the cruelest kind, as you would have a barren cell with no light, like a prison within a prison. On one occasion, the guards put two prisoners in one of these cells together, with only one leaving the following morning. The one left behind was found stuffed under the bed. You would think that once inmates were released from this prison, they would never look back. But sadly, that is not the case, as one of the most brutal incidents in its history happened outside of the walls. In July 1948, the reformatory's farm boss, his wife and daughter were kidnapped and shot to death by two parolees, hell-bent on revenge. It took a 6-state manhunt to track the men down after a shootout with the police. Robert Daniels was taken into custody and his partner James West was dead. Daniels told the police after he signed the confession, "I'll get the chair for this." And he wasn't wrong, as on January 3rd, 1949, he was executed. It is no surprise that many movies have used this location for the settings of their stories, from The Shawshank Redemption, Tango and Cash, and Air Force One, to name a few. This prison was meant for inmates who were too old for juvenile correction facilities, but their offences too minor for Ohio State Penitentiary. Sadly, when funding ceased, it was turned into a maximum security facility, a purpose for which it was never intended. In the 1990s, local activists rallied together to purchase the building from the state, and today you can visit it for many paranormal tours and experiences. But take note, as you approach the prison grounds, you may be greeted by the ghost of Phoebe Wise. In life, she was a survivor of multiple robberies and even killed a stalker on her doorstep. In time, she grew weary of people and tried her best to keep herself to herself. This led the local kids to label her a witch. There is a very good chance that you might see her at the side of the road as you head to the prison, often just standing there, but sometimes hitchhiking. But as you get close to her, she will disappear before your eyes. Is she warning you not to step inside the prison, or just lost lingering between this world and the next?